I never planned on buying Morrison Industries. But standing in the corner of my parents' lavishly decorated living room during their annual Christmas party, watching them parade my sister Lauren's latest promotion while treating me like invisible wallpaper, something inside me finally snapped. "Did you hear about Lauren's new position?" My mother gushed to anyone within earshot, champagne glass swaying dangerously in her manicured hand. "Senior Vice President of Operations at Morrison. And she's only 32. I sipped my water quietly, trying to blend into the expensive curtains. At 30 I was the family disappointment, or so they thought. My carefully crafted failure was actually part of a plan years in the making, but they'd never bothered to look beneath the surface. "Oh, and there's Olivia." My mother's voice dropped to a stage whisper as she noticed me. "She's still doing that. What was it again, dear?" "Data entry. Investment analysis, Mom," I corrected softly, though I knew it wouldn't matter. She'd already turned away, drawn to Lauren's latest story about her corner office view. My father appeared beside me, his disapproval radiating like a physical force. "You know, there's still an entry-level position open in accounting at Morrison. Even the janitors there make more than you do at that small firm of yours." I thought about my small firm, Phoenix Capital, the private equity company I'd built from scratch over the past 5 years. The same company that now controlled nearly 30% of Morrison Industries through shell corporations and quiet acquisitions. My parents had no idea that their precious Morrison Industries was already dancing in my palm. "I'm comfortable where I am, Dad," I replied, watching his face darken at what he perceived as my lack of ambition. "Comfortable?" He scoffed. "You live in a one-bedroom apartment while your sister has a penthouse. You drive a used Honda while she has a Mercedes. You're such a disappointment, Olivia. Your mother and I gave you every opportunity and you threw it all away." "Every opportunity?" I suppressed a bitter laugh. They'd emptied my college fund to pay for Lauren's MBA, telling me to take out loans because Lauren shows more promise. They'd given her the down payment for her first house while I lived on ramen noodles, building my company night after night. "At least the janitor at Morrison has benefits," my mother chimed in, rejoining our conversation at the worst possible moment. "Really, Olivia, it's embarrassing. Everyone here has made something of themselves except you." I scanned the room full of Morrison executives and their families, all here because my father was the CFO. They had no idea that tomorrow morning Phoenix Capital would complete its final acquisition, taking majority control of Morrison Industries. No idea that the worthless daughter they dismissed for years was about to become everyone's boss. The party dragged on, each minute bringing fresh humiliation. Lauren's fiancé, Thomas, who also worked at Morrison as head of legal, couldn't resist adding his own jabs. "Hey Liv," he smirked, catching me alone by the dessert table. "Heard about another opening in the mailroom. Should I put in a good word for you?" I smiled politely. "No thanks, Thomas. I'm sure you'll be busy enough tomorrow." He had no idea that his merger proposal, the one he'd been bragging about for months, sat and signed on my desk at Phoenix Capital. As guests began to leave, my mother cornered me one final time. "Really, Olivia, this has gone on long enough. You're 30 years old. When are you going to do something worthwhile with your life?" I set down my glass and looked her directly in the eyes. "Actually, Mom, I have a pretty big day at work tomorrow." She waved her hand dismissively. "What, finally getting a promotion to senior data entry?" "Something like that," I replied quietly. "You should watch the morning news. Morrison Industries is making a big announcement." She rolled her eyes. "Oh please, I think we'd know if anything important was happening at Morrison. Your father is the CFO after all." If only they knew that my father's position as CFO was precisely why I'd kept my identity as Phoenix Capital's CEO a secret. The SEC tended to frown on that kind of family connection during takeovers. I left the party early, ignoring my mother's comments about my lack of social graces. In my car, I made one final call to my VP of Operations. "Everything's set for tomorrow, James?" "All ready, Ms. Bennett. The board voted to approve the final acquisition an hour ago. You'll be introduced as the new CEO at the 9 a.m. meeting." I smiled, thinking of my father's mandatory 9 a.m. executive briefing. Perfect. Make sure all the papers are ready for me to sign first thing. That night, I barely slept, anticipating the morning's revelation. For 5 years, I'd worked in secret, building Phoenix Capital into a powerhouse while maintaining the appearance of a struggling analyst. I'd lived in a modest apartment, driven an old car and worn off-the-rack clothes, all while amassing the resources to take control of Morrison Industries. Tomorrow, every person who'd laughed at me, dismissed me, or called me worthless would discover exactly who they'd been underestimating. As I finally drifted off to sleep, I smiled, thinking of my mother's words. Even the janitor makes more than you. By this time tomorrow, I wouldn't just make more than the janitor. I'd be signing everyone's paychecks, including my father's. The next morning, I woke before dawn and stood before my closet, pushing aside the modest clothes I'd worn to maintain my cover. Hidden in the back was a garment bag containing an impeccably tailored Chanel suit, one that cost more than my struggling persona would make in 3 months. Today I would finally dress the part of who I really was. I arrived at Morrison Industries headquarters at 8:30 a.m., letting muscle memory guide me through the familiar lobby. I'd spent countless hours here over the years, carefully observing operations while everyone assumed I was just visiting my father or sister. Now I owned every inch of this building. "Good morning, Miss Bennett." James, my VP of operations, greeted me at the private elevator, the same one my father used every morning. "The board is assembled in the main conference room. Your family just arrived." I smiled, thinking of how many times I'd been told I wasn't good enough to step foot in that conference room. "And the papers? All ready for your signature, Sio." The elevator doors opened directly into the executive floor. Through the glass walls, I could see the conference room packed with familiar faces, board members, executives, and of course my family. My father sat in his usual seat, checking his watch impatiently. Lauren perched beside him, whispering something to Thomas. My mother had apparently decided to attend as well, probably expecting to celebrate another of Lauren's achievements. "It's time," James murmured. I took a deep breath and strode toward the conference room doors. The security guard, who just yesterday would have stopped me, jumped to attention and opened them wide. "Ladies and gentlemen," the board chairman's voice cut through the quiet chatter. "I'd like to introduce the CEO of Phoenix Capital and the new majority owner of Morrison Industries, Miss Olivia Bennett." The silence was absolute. I walked to the head of the table, heels clicking against marble floors, and took my seat. The confusion on the faces around me slowly transformed into shock as recognition dawned. My father's coffee cup clattered against its saucer. Lauren's perfectly glossed mouth hung open. Thomas looked like he might faint. But it was my mother's expression that I'll remember forever. Pure disbelief mixed with the dawning realization that she'd spent years dismissing her daughter's actual success. This must be a joke," my father finally sputtered. "Olivia works as a data analyst at some small investment firm." I smiled, sliding a folder across the table to him. "Actually, Dad, I own that small firm. Phoenix Capital currently controls 57% of Morrison Industries shares, making us the majority shareholder. As of this morning, I'm your new CEO." Lauren found her voice next. But that's impossible. Phoenix Capital is worth billions. 4.6 billion to be exact," I replied calmly. "Though I suppose that still puts me behind the janitor in terms of benefits, right, Mom?" My mother's face had gone from red to white to slightly green. She gripped the edge of the table as if it might steady her world, which was currently turning upside down. "Now then," I continued, opening my leather portfolio, "let's discuss some changes. First, the merger proposal." I turned to Thomas, who somehow managed to shrink in his expensive suit. "Your work on this was, let's say, lacking. We'll be bringing in outside counsel to revise the terms." Thomas swallowed hard. I noticed Lauren's hand slip from his arm. "Next, operations." I met Lauren's eyes. "Your department's performance has been disappointing. We'll be conducting a full audit starting tomorrow." "You can't do this," my father interrupted, his face flushed with anger. "I'm the CFO. Actually, Dad, I can." "And about that?" I nodded to James, who distributed another set of documents. "Given the obvious conflict of interest, we'll need your resignation effective immediately. Don't worry, your severance package is quite generous." The board members watched in silent fascination as my family's carefully constructed hierarchy crumbled. Years of their dismissive comments and casual cruelty played through my mind. "Even a janitor makes more than you. When are you going to do something worthwhile? You're such a disappointment." Now they sat before me, their positions and power dependent entirely on my decisions. "Of course," I added, "if anyone objects to these changes, You're welcome to seek employment elsewhere. Though I should mention that Phoenix Capital has significant influence with most major firms in the industry. My mother finally found her voice, though it quivered. Olivia, honey, we didn't know. We never meant to treat me like I was worthless. I finished for her. To spend years mocking my career while I was building an empire? To use every family gathering as an opportunity to remind me of my failures. We were just trying to motivate you, my father protested weakly. Well, congratulations, I replied. It worked. You motivated me to succeed beyond your wildest expectations. And now here we are. I stood, smoothing my Chanel suit. This meeting is adjourned. James will distribute the new organizational charts this afternoon. I suggest everyone review them carefully. Your future positions, if you still have them, will be detailed there. As people filed out, my family remained frozen in their seats, still struggling to process the morning's revelations. Lauren looked like she might cry, her mascara already smudging at the corners. Oh, and Mom. I paused at the door. About what you said last night, you were right. I did get a promotion today. I trust this position is worthwhile enough for you. The aftermath was exactly what you'd expect. Lauren quit before I could fire her, dragging Thomas with her to some mid-level firm where they quickly discovered their talents were far less impressive without family connections to smooth their way. My father's resignation made headlines in the financial papers, though I allowed him to call it a retirement to save face. My mother tried to rewrite history, telling anyone who would listen that she'd always believed in me. I just knew Olivia would do great things, she'd gush at social events. A mother can sense these things. I let her maintain the illusion. After all, I had what I wanted, success on my own terms without their help or approval. 3 months later, I hosted my own Christmas party in my penthouse apartment, the one I'd owned for years but never revealed. I invited the entire Morrison Industries board, along with key executives and their families. My parents and Lauren received invitations too, though I knew they wouldn't come. Standing at the window overlooking the city where I'd built my empire in secret, I thought about the long path that led here. Every dismissive comment, every mockery, every well-meaning criticism had become fuel for my success. My assistant approached with a message. My mother had called asking if we could have a family dinner to discuss everything. I smiled, thinking of all the family dinners where I'd sat silently, enduring their judgment. Tell her my schedule is quite full, I replied. Even the janitor makes more appearances at family functions than I do these days. Sometimes success isn't about proving others wrong. It's about proving yourself right. And as I stood in my penthouse, running the company my family never thought I could even work for, I knew I'd done exactly that. They'd called me worthless, but I'd built something priceless. They'd dismissed my potential, but I'd exceeded even my own expectations. And most importantly, I'd learned that the best revenge isn't showing others what they lost. It's showing yourself what you can gain when you stop seeking their approval. The view from the top isn't about looking down on others. It's about finally seeing clearly just how far you've climbed.